The swordmasters armour set is really good for increasing defensive capabilities of swords by both providing a 50% damage resist on blocking and exhausting enemies on hit, reducing their outgoing damage. But this isn't limited to swords. In fact, I believe this effect is better suited to glaives. So let's begin. We have the ability to increase defensive capabilities of glaives, ideally flashing block between hits to maximise the time of the 4-piece set effect Stesso Tempo. This is the 50% DR lasting for 3 seconds, refreshable with subsequent blocks. Because of that, we want a glaive which benefits from blocking and has it available quite often. With everything else this glaive also provides, I think it just has to be Vexcalibur. Blocking will give you damage resist and avoid overshield simultaneously. And by the way, the clips you're seeing right now is in the -50 Vanguard alert. So not only is the defensive capabilities, but there also has to be some offensive power to get through these ridiculously tanky enemies in a good amount of time. Arc Hunter does this best. Before the more niche specific glaive damage boosts, it can Giga Juice it with just combination blow, providing up to a 400% glaive and melee boost at ×3. And you don't even have to go through that whole dodge melee bullshit ringer thing right now. You can just do a single Tempest Strike to give you max stacks instantly if you take out 3 enemies with it, which even in more difficult content is pretty easy to do, making combination blow less about the whole combination part and more about the... it doesn't matter. Point being, it's very easy to stack up, and once you have it, it lasts for 20 seconds, in which you can just go on a glaive rampage. You can also refresh it back to its full duration at any time too, with any charged melee or Tempest Strike final blows. Another part of the traditional combo blow loop which you can replace too is, well, the dodge. In the Big 26, we don't want to be using just regular Gambler's Dodge. We can do Tempest Ascension. As long as you do have Gambler's Dodge equipped, every Ascension will provide full melee charge, and every Tempest Strike kill will provide full clash charge. You can just cycle these two instead. Ascension is giving Amplified the greatest elemental buff, and jolting all nearby enemies for class and artifact synergy. I will say though, both of these aspects do make combination blow better, most of the time, not all the time. If you are building up combination blow stacks, especially if you're starting from 0, you can still use your regular melee if you feel like you might whiff a Tempest Strike and you don't have an emergency dodge available. As well as if you're using Tempest Strikes back to back to back, using a regular dodge instead of an Ascension might be better, because you can remain grounded and get out attacks faster. It is one of those where you just got to judge a situation, but I will say most of the time, Tempest Ascension is better. From this then, aspects, melees and dodges basically pick themselves. Other key subclass choices are made with Gathering Storm. This is because Arc Staff is basically just a worse version of running around with a glaive, and Storm's Edge sucks, so picking the instant cast super is never a bad choice. Flashbang Grenade's really good. It can stun both Overload and Unstoppable champions in one, and you can also use it to create an opening. Back to Vexcal. Outside of the plus 400% from combination blow, what else do we need to glaive max? I'm talking making this thing powerful enough that you can tear through champions, as well as sustainably chunk boss targets. And thankfully there is actually options available. Built into Vexcalibur itself, it deals 20% more damage with an overshield, this being a multiplicative buff and always available. Melee stat provides up to a 30% multiplicative buff too. Again, this is permanently available if you run 200 melee, either natty or with melee fonts. For additive buffs, Triton's Vice increases glaive damage by 200% now when surrounded, and has extra glaive benefits too. I think this exotic is actually underrated, and anyone memeing on this thing is just kind of wrong and stuck in the past. However, if you don't like it, you can use Gifted Conviction instead. You can get full value from this still. But look, the survivability with this build is really, really good. You don't really need the 50% from Gifted too, though when you think about it. Gifted provides a 50% damage resist, and Swordmasters provides a 50% damage resist. So that means, if you have both of these active at the same time, you take 0 damage. Anyway, other melee boosts. Arc has Spark of Feedback. If you get hit with a melee, you do 100% more melee back to them. Armour Smith is an artifact perk which increases melee damage by also 100%. This applies for a short duration whenever you break a target's shield. This also gives a bit of damage resist, which means using this with Gifted. Okay, enough of the bit, okay, whatever. Yeah, it's just, you get a lot of DR. There's many ways. None of this matters because you have Void over shields anyway. All of this gives us 2 values. The first being a realistic one of combination blow times 3, active Triton Vice and high melee stat with an overshield. This comes to 600% increase multiplied by 1.3 then by 1.2 for a total of a 936% increased damage, which is not too bad. If you add Spark of Feedback and Armour Smith, it comes to a total of 1248%. You will have this sometimes, but not always. However, what this does is provide a pretty good Disneyland clickbait value of ridiculous melee DPS. On top of that, you also just don't die. However, that is not all. Because truth be told, all of this I just stated wasn't the reason I picked Vexcalibur in the first place. All the damage stacking potential was a little bit of a happy accident. Really, I just wanted any means necessary to get Void Overshields on Arc Hunter, because it takes a setup from pretty good to absolutely busted as soon as you pick these mods. Singularity Blade, Power from Pain, Void Infestation. Starting with Singularity Blade, any melee or glaive hit weakens a target if you have a Void buff, which is Overshield in this case. So all that damage calculation, you can just add a 15% onto it as well. Power from Pain is even better. Defeat 3 weakened targets, which will be any target, and you get Devour. Now you really aren't dying. Void Infestation will spread weaken on final blows. You don't really need this, but it makes a whole weaken everything setup more consistent. Dielectric's great too. Arc debuff targets will heal you and generate an extra orb. Honestly, with all of this stuff, if you die, you might just suck. Or you got hit by bungee physics, it's one of the two. To jolt enemies a lot, all you need to do is spam Ascension or throw a lot of grenades. I will also be giving out a copy of Scientia Illuminata. This emblem previously used by all PvP sweats in order to look cool. If you also want to look cool, all you have to do is join my Discord and react to the post in the emblem giveaway channel, and I'll pull it at the end of this week. If you leave a comment and subscribe, this won't increase your odds at all, but I do appreciate it. Finishing up the build then, the fragments. Spark of Shock for jolting grenades, double champ stun enabler, and you'll get more of these because you have Devour. Spark of Resistance if you just really want to take the piss with damage resist. This one providing 25% when near 3 or more enemies. Spark of Ions generates Ionic Tracers, which is a way to get even more grenades and abilities in general. Spark of Feedback is the melee boosting one, and finally Spark of Amplitude for extra orbs of power. Other weapons are quite open, take what you like, but I would recommend refurbished A499 as anti-barrier. You could also use a kinetic slot sniper like something or Pradifs 2, or just throw on Mint Retrograde like the other 3 thinkers out there. Armour mods with a setup you do end up being quite font heavy. I had 2 for super, 1 for grenade and 1 for class. If you don't have 200 melee stat through armour, you can take out the grenade and put in 1 to 3 copies of melee. Orbs are mainly generated through fragments and abilities, but if you can fit it in, 1 copy of Heavy Handed and Reaper is nice to have too. Otherwise, just run basically a standard setup which I have on screen, you can just copy this. You don't need weapon surges at all, so you can use stacks on stacks instead. Powerful Attraction is another which had classes at instant pick. Another season, another peak glaive setup. There always seems to be one, and they always seem to be really good. Thank you for watching.